Hey everyone, so today we're going to do a quick demo of how to create a MySQL instance using RDS on AWS. First, let's go to the RDS screen. All right, and here you can either go into databases and then create a database, or you can simply just create a database right here. So let's um, go ahead and do that. What we'll do is we'll do standard create instead of easy create for this demo. And we are creating a MySQL instance, but as you can see, there are several other database engines available for you on AWS RDS. So let's go ahead and select MySQL. We'll keep it at, we'll go ahead and install the latest version. And because this is a demo, I am going to ultimately do free tier, but I just want to show you guys the other options available when you select production or dev test. So when you have production selected, basically you will um, create it keeping in mind that you want it to be highly available, and you also want superior performance. So on the settings, it's pretty simple. Your database instance identifier, whatever your database name is, you put that here. Your credentials for the default master username gets populated as admin, but you can always change it. So for simplicity's sake, you can keep it at admin, and you can auto-generate a password or you can specify your own password, right? Just make sure it's a strong password. Then again, we are on the production tier. Keep that in mind. So for the DB instance class for production tier, it gives us options of choosing what actual compute power our DB instance is going to run on. So you can choose your standard classes, and then you can choose your memory optimized classes where you have more RAM per vCPU, and then you have burstable classes, which are smaller classes, but they can burst to higher values, right? So for database production databases, you will most likely end up using the memory optimized classes when you're deploying production. And then obviously you can include previous generation classes if you want to have that option. It'll just give you more like some of the older generation instance types in that case. Then for storage, you would uh, most likely use provisioned IOPS again for a production database because if it's a heavily used transactional database, or even if it's a data warehouse, which is heavily queried, you want your IOPS to match your demand. So in that case, you want to choose provisioned IOPS where you can actually pick the IOPS that you want. Just keep in mind that more the IOPS, you know, the more money you'll spend. So only go up to the IOPS that you actually need. Otherwise, you obviously have, uh, you know, the general purpose SSD, which you can use very easily for your dev test environments. And we'll be using this for a free tier database creation as well. Auto scaling, you want to use auto scaling if you have unpredictable traffic patterns, or there is a peak in demand coming, and you want to or that somebody is going to do some bulk upload of data, so you want to enable storage auto scaling, but you also don't want it to go over a certain limit, so you would want to specify um, a maximum threshold for your storage that, okay, I want it to auto scale, but I don't want it to go over 1,000 gigabytes. And multi-easy is essentially you want your database to be highly available and durable, especially because we have production selected right now. So in this availability and durability option, what you'll do is you'll create a standby instance. And again, as you can see, it says right here, recommended for production usage. So what it'll do is it'll create a standby in a different availability zone than the one that's where your production instance is sitting. So in case something happens to the production availability zone, you'll have another instance which is completely in sync with your production and will assume the role of production in case something happens to your production instance. So this is again highly recommended for production. Obviously, you don't need this for dev test or free tier. And the rest is pretty standard. So let's go back and select free tier, and we'll actually go ahead and create the stuff. So we have database 2 admin. um, Okay. DB instance class. I'm going to keep it at T2 micro because this is a free tier um, instance. General purpose SSD. I'm going to keep it at 20. We'll keep this checked because I know I'm not going to upload any data that'll actually, um, you know, uh, invoke this. But if you're going to keep it up and running for a while, and this is a free tier instance, then you want to disable storage auto scaling or scale this down significantly. As you can see, because it's a free tier, this multi-easy deployment is completely grayed out. You don't get this option, you get it only for production. The rest of the stuff is pretty standard. You pick your default VPC. This is a demo instance. Obviously, if it's a production and dev test, you might have another custom VPC where you want to launch this instance. But for us, we're just going to keep it at our default VPC that came with our AWS account. The subnet group is our default VPC subnet group. That's fine. You won't actually see anything else right here. We will enable public access just because, this is our demo instance and we have no other way of connecting to it right now. Obviously, you can have VPNs going into your AWS account. In that case, you wouldn't want public access enabled. You could also have a Bastion host that you can connect to, and then from there you can connect to your private MySQL instance. In that case as well, you wouldn't need public access enabled. But for the simplicity of our demonstration, we'll just keep it at yes. All right, then the security group. So we can choose an existing security group and just choose your default VPC security group. I'll show you guys how to add um, your MySQL port to it, so you're actually able to access it. And then we'll choose availability zone. It doesn't really matter. Let Oracle pick wherever, let AWS pick wherever they have capacity. And database authentication is password authentication is fine. We don't really need any of this for our free tier instance, but if you have a production instance, you might want to enable automatic backups. In that case, you obviously want to specify your retention period for your backups as well. And you also want to specify a window where your backups will happen, because you don't want your backups to kick in while you have a bunch of users in your system. So make sure you select a window that suits your needs. And it's always in UTC, so don't forget to convert to your time zone. So we're not going to enable backups. We are, because it's free tier. Obviously, we're not going to enable monitoring as well, but if it's your production instance, then you definitely want to enable enhanced monitoring. So make sure that you um, get this set up as well. And don't forget to actually at least select your error log. Um, if not all, these would help in troubleshooting. If you have a performance issue, for instance, so the slow query log will help. And obviously, if you have any other, database issues, this error log definitely will help troubleshoot. So if this is your production instance, make sure that you have all of these checked. For us, we will uncheck it because it's a free tier instance. We don't have to worry about the IAM rule. I mean, obviously not right now, but for CloudWatch logs, it would have linked it automatically. And now here is a enable auto minor version upgrade. So if you want minor version upgrades to happen automatically, enable this. Keep in mind, if this is a production instance, you might not want to enable this unless you're absolutely sure that it's not going to break anything, and you know that your application that's running on top of your database is going to be compatible with the new versions. So use this feature carefully in production environments. In dev test environments and free tier environments, of course, it's fine. Um, but in production environments, just be careful with the upgrade feature. And again, as for the backup windows, you can select the window. So when you enable this, make sure you select it, especially for production. And again, if it's your production instance, make sure you have enabled deletion protection enabled, because um, you don't want somebody accidentally deleting your MySQL database. Okay, so we're going to disable this because this is a free tier. And when you actually have production or dev test selected, depending on the parameters you picked, it will tell you estimated monthly costs. So, so that's what's going to show up right here. So because obviously it's free tier, it's just generally telling us that what's included under free tier and when we're going to start getting charged for it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and click create database. And there we go. So now it's creating um, our database. So it's going to take a few minutes, and once it's done creating, it'll also take a snapshot of the gold image of the database. So this is an old database that I had created, and as you can see that this is the endpoint that becomes available to you once your database is up and running. So when you're doing any of your scripting or when you are trying to point your application to your database, this is the endpoint that you will be using. And MySQL, this is the default port that it listens on, 3306. So that's another thing that what you have to do is you have to make sure that your default security group, that's the security group, will be selected. And we have to make sure that we at least have 3306 um, included in that. So what we will do is we are going to add a rule right here. Now let's see if it has MySQL. Yeah, it does. It's 3306 right here. And I'm just going to do my IP. That's my IP. And I'll save rules. Okay. So keep in mind that you have this included right there. All right, so that's about your RDS creation. Let's go back and check. It's probably still just creating. Let's take a few minutes to get up and running. Let's see. Yeah, it's still creating. But obviously, after a few minutes, you'll be able to see that it comes back as available right here, and then you should be able to connect to it. All right, that's it, guys. That's how you create a MySQL instance on Amazon RDS.